Hi, I'm Terry Klein, and this is 10 Minutes on Songs. And this week, I'm going to talk about how I write. Before I get into that, it would be awesome if you click subscribe. That really helps. If you like the video, that also helps a ton. And share it with your friends if you think they would be interested in a songwriter kind of talking about his own process. We're going to talk about how I write, and what prompted me to decide to talk about that this week was a tweet that I saw from Songwriters on Process, which is a really cool feed. They interview songwriters, and they interviewed Jim James. Jim James is the lead singer of My Morning Jacket. He's had a really successful solo career of his own, a brilliant voice. They quoted him as saying, is, "For me to write, there has to be some inspiration. If the inspiration isn't there, I've never been one to pull my chair up to the desk and write just for the sake of writing." That was super interesting to me because it's such a contrast with my process. I do write for the sake of writing. I suspect there is a neurological explanation for why I kind of set these appointment times to sit down on the couch and write. I suspect that there are neural pathways and neurons that you need to keep stimulated in order for kind of the creative parts of your brain to function. I bet there's a scientific explanation for it. But I kind of left logic and science behind a little bit when I left the law. I think there's a mystical element to it, and it has to do with the muse. I think I do believe in the muse. And I think that by putting yourself in a set location, a consistent location, at a consistent time of day, enables the muse to know where you are when she comes looking for you. Those are words that 7 years ago I would have thought were nuts, but there is a mystical element to this endeavor. So there's a mystical element. There's also a practical element. The practical element is showing up every day. That's something that you hear from professional songwriters in Nashville all the time. It is that it is very important to write every day. I think that songwriting, there's a songwriting muscle, sort of, and you do need to, or at least I need to keep it working. When I get out of the habit of writing on a consistent basis, maybe I'm promoting a record, maybe I am touring, or just real life has interfered. When I get out of that rhythm, it takes me a while, even after coming back here and writing every day, it takes me a while to get back into a rhythm where I really feel kind of like I'm using all of my creative energy in an efficient way, I guess. I think a lot of writers work that way. One of the writers that I've talked about quite a bit and who I even wrote a song about is Flannery O'Connor, the short story writer from Georgia. Her method was to write for about 3 hours every day, every morning, in the same place in her house in Milledgeville, Georgia. And 3 hours was about her limit. 3 hours is about my limit too. And I also try to write every day. I have the luxury, and it is a tremendous luxury, and I feel immensely fortunate that I do get to try to write every day. When I was a lawyer and when I first started writing songs, I thought about songs every day. I would think about lyrics every day and maybe jot a note down here and there. But it usually had to be like a weekend for me to to sit down and really and write. But I still kind of made that appointment with myself. I made a commitment to myself when I first started writing that I was going to try to write one song every week, at least. And I did. They were bad. I don't play almost any of those songs that I wrote during that first 15 or 16 months when I was really kind of getting into songwriting. So there's real life that will prevent you from really kind of getting into a serious writing groove every day, unless you are fortunate like I am and you can do that. It shifted as my career and as my notion about what my career was going to be shifted. When I shifted to being a lawyer really in the afternoons and doing songwriting in the morning, that was a real intense burst of creativity for me. And some of the songs some of my favorite songs, Everywhere But Here, Daddy's Store, Back to Being You, the new version of Madeline, all came during that period, that first 6 months of 2016. Then I moved to Austin, and I needed to find a different creative rhythm, and it took me a while, but I was still writing to the extent that, again, real life wasn't intervening. I was writing every day. It was just my notebook was filling up with pages of stuff that wasn't good enough, in my opinion. How I write now, because of our family logistics, I wake up pretty early. I have to drive our older daughter to school, and that gets me back home around 8:15 or 8:30 in the morning. I have breakfast, and then at about between 9 and 9:30, I head out to the Man Shack, or the Song Shed as it is known, where I'm not right now because I think the air conditioner isn't working tremendously well, and given that it's 106 degrees in Austin, I don't. There's a limit to what I will subject myself to in furtherance of the arts. So I will go out there between 9 and 9:30 and work on an idea maybe that I've been playing with. Continue working on a song that I've already kind of gotten the meat of, and I know there are a couple words that there's trouble with. But there are some days when I just go out and I sit there and I'm like, I'm not excited about any of my ideas. I am just going to sit here. I'm going to noodle on my guitar. I'm going to look out the window. Maybe I'll even set the guitar aside and think about, things that have traumatized me or interested me, or times I've felt vulnerable. Or, I feel like this today and I'm going to write a song about this. One of the songs that came out of one of those days was Too Blue to Get That Far. That's not a song that would have happened if I'd just waited for inspiration. I was sitting in there. I had no idea what I was going to write. I had no inspiration to write anything, but I sat down on the couch and I was having a really bad day, and I decided to turn it into a song. When the Ocotillo Bloom is a similar situation where I was writing a completely different song about that same part of the world, and it just was bad. But I was sitting on the couch and I thought to myself, I can do this. There's another angle I can take on this. And because I had made that kind of appointment with myself, and that commitment to do it in a structured way at a certain time, that song happened. For me, how I write, and I suspect there'll be a bunch of different ones of these that I talk about, different facets, but just purely in the pure kind of nuts and bolts way, I would say that the most important thing is to make an appointment with yourself. It might not be every day. It might be once a week. It might be 3 times a week. But make an appointment. Put yourself in a certain location where you're going to be free of interruption, and and do it at the same time if you can. Again, I think there's a neurological and a scientific explanation for why that works as a writing method. But I kind of lean on the mystical piece of things too. That is how I write. And I'm interested in how you write. So if you have comments that you want to make on this, if you think I'm just wrong, or if you think I'm being unrealistic because, you don't have time to do this, so you kind of just have to sit around and wait. I'd love to hear that. This has been 10 Minutes on Songs. I am Terry Klein. And subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with your friends if you think they'd be interested. And we will be back next week talking about I have no idea what. Y'all take care.